Nosferatu. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to 2024's Nosferatu. So first off, sorry if my voice sounds a little off here. Um, I'm dealing with a little bit of a scratchy throat, a little bit of congestion, but not a lot there. Just a very, very minor little cold, I guess you could say. Nothing major, nothing big, nothing that really bothers me too much. It's honestly more than anything just the sore throat. And it's very lightly sore, so. But it will affect my voice, so if you notice any change in how I sound, that's why. And if I do cough at any point, also why. So, the next thing we need to address is that this is our first February, our first official February movie reaction that's not part of the previous month's randomized movie reactions. Because even though technically yesterday, the day you're seeing this, was February as well, February 1st on Saturday, um, most of this past week was January still, so I decided we're going to do one more January randomized movie reaction. But today we're going back to just our normal way of doing things. And since February is the month of love, what better way to get that started than with Dracula? Because for those who don't know, that's what Nosferatu is. It's just Dracula. Because when the first original Nosferatu film was being made, they were unable to secure the rights to Bram Stoker's Dracula. As such, they changed little details such as names and the appearance of the character and whatnot. This allowed them to be legally distinct enough to create an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula without it technically being Bram Stoker's Dracula. That's how we got Count Orlok and whatnot. Now, I've seen the original one from, I believe it was the 1920s, once when I was young. So I don't remember, like, all the different changes and whatnot. I don't remember all the different names. But yeah, the one big one to note is that the main villain of it is not Dracula, but Count Orlok. And in this case, he is being played by, um, oh, I had his name in my head and now I can't remember it. Don't you hate when that happens? When you have the name ahead of time? Bill Skarsgård. I figured it out. Bill Skarsgård is an interesting actor because, in my opinion, and I know it's an unpopular opinion, but when Bill Skarsgård tries to play like a caricature, I do not even slightly think he's good at it. But in the like roles where I've seen him actually play just a person, a character, I think he is good. Let me give examples. The remake of It, where he plays Pennywise the Dancing Clown. I did not like his performance. Um, I just don't think he was good with it. I don't think he got the character down. And a lot of that comes down to the writing and direction, of course, but I don't think he I don't think he did do well with it. I'm one of those few who vastly prefers the original Tim Curry version. Not just with the character of Pennywise, but with it in general. I think it's a better movie. Or, well, technically the original was a mini series, but still. Um, but an example of him playing like just a normal human character, who I actually did enjoy the performance for, was his character in Barbarian. He had a smaller role in that movie. He wasn't like the main character or anything, but I actually much preferred his performance there. I think that he was better with it. I think that his performance felt more, you know, quality. It felt like there was more effort and character put into it than, you know, the character who's supposed to be very out there and like the one who's supposed to pop off the screen and everything. So it's like, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but it's my opinion and I'm entitled to it. As for this, I have seen like very little of the advertising for this, but I do know that Count Orlok's design was changed. I don't know what it looks like. I haven't seen it, but I have heard that his design was changed from like the classic kind of ratty, bald look that he had in the original when Max Schreck played him. Um, so I'm thinking it's probably going to be more Dracula like, more what you would expect for the character that Count Orlok is, supposed to be. Which I'm fine with that, as long as it doesn't take away from the vibe of the film and the style and everything. Now, I don't know who else is in this besides him as well. So any actor who's in this at this point would be a surprise to me. I'm definitely interested to find out who else stars in this. Um, and my hope for this is that more than just trying to be scary, more than just trying to be, dark, I want it to feel like a Dracula story. I want it to have those vibes, that gritty, dark, um, like Victorian style. You know what I mean? It has to have this certain vibe to it. And I think for other adaptions or whatnot or takes on Dracula, they can do something that's more akin to like straight horror, but this I want to have like this gothic vibe. More than just horror, actually having like this specific feeling and tone to it. Um but yeah, so like I said, I don't really know like a lot about like how the story differentiates, but I do like know the idea of the story of Dracula. It's been quite a while since I've read or watched Dracula, so there's gonna be some things that I don't quite remember. That's just how it works. But I think I'll get the gist of it. I think I'll understand most of it. Now, this is a donation reward for Venom, so thank you, Venom. And I actually found out there's like five Nosferatu movies total, maybe six, five or six. And like, there's the original, there's this one, and then there's like three or four between them that were all released at separate times. They're not in the same continuity at all. But one of them did just release last year, or in 2023, rather. So that's interesting too, that we had two takes on Nosferatu in back-to-back years. I'm I'm very curious to see this, especially because of the reviews. I've heard very mixed reviews on this. And again, no spoilers, obviously, but I've heard some people saying like it's really good, really scary, like really well made. And then I've heard some people saying it's one of their biggest disappointments of 2024. Some people saying it didn't live up to the advertising and the hype and the excitement, didn't live up to the story that it's based on and everything. So, I don't know. And as I've always said, I tend to judge things based on their own merit rather than what other people think of it. Because a lot of times my views tend to be different because I judge things based on what I think of the film rather than making my opinions before even seeing it. So I'm very, very interested to see what side of the fence I end up being on, or if I'm even kind of more in the middle. We'll see. But this movie is like just over 2 hours long, so we've got quite a bit to get to, and hopefully it ends up being impressive. Especially since there was a recent Dracula slash vampire movie I really liked that came out in the past few years with Voyage of the Demeter. So hopefully, hopefully it ends up being really good as well. But let's get into this and find out. Hold up just a second there. Before you click that link down in the description below to go to today's reaction, I just wanted to take this moment real quick to remind you of all the awesome content we have on the channel. Between Monday and Friday, we have a plethora of awesome series reactions, with 2 on Wednesday. We also have movie reactions every Saturday and Sunday. I do pre-record them during the week, but upload them on the weekend. And don't forget about all the awesome gaming content over on the Princess of Gaming channel. Every single day of the week, we have some awesome Let's Plays for you. A bunch of different things to check out, and more coming in the future. And don't forget to click that subscribe button or like the video if you really enjoy the content I'm putting out. There will be more to come in the future. In the meantime, thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get this going. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So I'm going to just start off by saying this was very good, but I do have one notable issue with it. That keeps it from being like really great for me. I like the kind of old style that Robert Eggers created for this film, not just with the sets, the costuming, etc., but with even how it's shot. The way that it's shot with the cameras, the old style and grittiness it has. It feels like an older film because of all of that. Because of the way it's shot. The problem that I have is that it doesn't feel like an older film. While it looks like one, visually speaking, the audio work, especially the musical cues, and I guess you could say the direction of it, feels very modern. And it kind of clashes. Like there's parts, for example, where it's being super dramatic, and you'll have the audio cues that will start growing in volume until they just kind of stop, because it's being dramatic and spooky and all of that jazz. That doesn't fit with the visual style that they're going for. That fits more with a modern movie. And the problem is, it's too much. It feels like it's clashing so hard with what this movie's trying to capture that it comes across as forced. On top of that, you have certain shots that are super dramatic, the way they're presented and everything, and it's just the melodrama of this film doesn't feel natural. It feels like Robert Eggers and everyone else who worked on this we're putting a little too much over drama in it. I don't know how else to put it. To where it just came across as too modern for the visual style they were trying to go with. Because it's very clear that they're trying to make this feel like an older film. They're trying to make this feel more classic, more rustic, with how it's visually very grainy and very faded with the colors, etc., etc. It's meant to feel old. But when you have the audio cues like that, like these air horns blasting in your ears and shit, you have these super hyper dramatic moments that are just like kind of silly with because they're so over dramatic. It just doesn't feel like it meshes very well. And it starts to feel like you're just like you're trying to add in a style on top of a completely separate, completely different style. And it just doesn't work, in my opinion. But that's my only really big issue. There are some parts in this that were maybe a little slow, but they were building. They were like creating the suspense, creating the feeling of dread, and I can live with that because especially as it gets to like kind of halfway through, it really does start to pick up. Um, but I can live with that. It's just the drama, the over drama, is a little much for me. Excuse me. I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. Jesus. Um, but yeah. So that was fine. That was fine. The pacing. Um, and I will actually say this was probably Skarsgård's best role that I've seen him in to date. Because unlike Pennywise, where he was trying to act scary but came across as unintentionally comedic, um, which is ironic considering it's a literal clown character, but he was trying to act very seriously scary and just was not intimidating at all. Was just not believably scary. One of my issues with that film. Um, and unlike the little tiny bit I've seen from like trailers of The Crow, which just doesn't seem to understand what The Crow is about. I haven't seen the new one yet. I've only seen the first one still. But from the trailers, it is so wrong for what The Crow is and what it's trying to achieve. And from what I've heard, a lot of people pretty much agree with that after the movie came out. It did not do well. But this, even more so than Barbarian, where again, he was playing a normal human character, this felt like he actually tried to embody the character. It actually felt like he was Count Orlok. Mind you, the excessive breathing was a bit much. The excessive breathing was a bit much. But other than that, it's like, yeah, I felt like this was like no, the Nosferatu. I feel like this was Count Orlok. It it actually worked. He was scary, he was creepy, he was fucking weird as well. Which I mean, I think that's just Bill Skarsgård. Like every one of his roles has that in it. Um, he was he was everything he needed to be. I feel, and I appreciate that. And obviously, in the reaction, I praised Willem Dafoe's performance. It was very restrained for him until the end. But it still felt very much like a Willem Dafoe performance, nonetheless. And you have to give him massive credit for that. Obviously, everyone else did a great job too. Um, I feel like people are going to specifically focus in on Lily Rose Depp's performance because, or I guess already did, because she is, one of the main leads and she is the one who kills Orlok and everything, and her performance was phenomenal. But I feel like people are going to ignore all the other major characters too. Ralph Ineson as Severs, like that makes me very excited for him playing Galactus in the new Fantastic Four movie coming out this year. It's like I'm very excited to see his performance as that now because I've I've heard Ralph Ineson do like voice stuff before. He was in like Star Versus and various things, and I think I've seen him in like some things like Kingsman as minor characters. But it's like this is I think the first big role I've seen him in, and after watching this, I'm like, okay, I could see him being Galactus. I don't even know how to explain why, but I can see him being Galactus now. So I'm very, very curious to see his performance in Fantastic Four First Steps. Um, Aaron Taylor Johnson, I did not realize that was him until the credits. But once the credits hit and I saw his name, it's like I realized he was Friedrich. Like I understood who he was. And it's like, wow, he just kind of melted into this role. Like he's done some varied roles. Like Quicksilver is obviously very different from Kick Ass, and very different from Tangerine. I think is the right one in Bullet Train. Very different characters. Um, but this was such a different role, and I know he's in that Craven the Hunter movie as well. Haven't seen that yet, but I'm cautious about that film as it is. But I'm very interested to see his performance at the very least. Um, I really liked God, what was her name? Anna. Anna was the character, I believe. I liked her performance as well. The actress who played her. Emma Corrin. Yeah, I thought she did a great job as well. And again, I think she's gonna be very much not ignored, but not given as much love for her performance as Lily Rose Depp. And of course, Nicholas Holt, which that's not a surprise. Nicholas Holt's a phenomenal actor. He's definitely becoming one of the best of this generation. And yeah, it's funny. He's now been in two different interpretations of Dracula because he was in the Renfield movie playing Renfield, and now he's playing Thomas in this, who is basically Jonathan Harker, and it's like that's just fun to me. And I mentioned in the reaction, it's like, okay, so when's he actually going to play Dracula? I actually want to see that. I actually think he'd be a good Dracula. I wonder if Renfield was the reason he was cast for this, though. I feel like that could be the case. Um, Apparently, I found out as well that the character names in this weren't exactly the same as in the original, and that the names are kind of a shout out to like actors and directors and people who worked on the original. For example, um, Ellen's cat Greta is an allusion to Greta Schroeder, who was Ellen's actress in the original 1922 Nosferatu. Um, da, 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 da. Ah, Friedrich Harding, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character. His first name alludes to Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau, the director of 1922's Nosferatu. Willem Dafoe's character, Professor von Franz. Um, the character in the original was Professor Henrik Galeen. Uh, or no, Henrik Galeen's character, Professor Bulver. But is obviously based on Abraham Van Helsing. His first name, Albin, alludes to Albin Grau, the producer and production designer of the original, who also had an interest in occultism. Um, and Ralph Ineson's character, Dr. Wilhelm Sievers, his first name is another allusion to Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau. So Murnau actually got a couple different shout outs there. And of course, all of them are based off of like the characters from Bram Stoker's Dracula, because that's what Nosferatu is, like I mentioned in the pre thoughts. Eric Knock is Renfield, for example, if that wasn't obvious. Um, Anna is Lucy from Dracula. I already mentioned Von Franz being Van Helsing. Obviously, Orlok is Dracula. Thomas Hutter is Jonathan Harker. Ellen Hutter is Mina Harker, and so on and so forth. Like I said in the pre thoughts, Nosferatu came about because it was supposed to be an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, but they couldn't get the rights. So they renamed things and made it distinctive enough to where they could legally get away with it. And now we have a modern retelling of that original 1922 film that kind of even renames them further and reestablishes it a little bit more to be its own thing once again. And I like that. I kind of like just the history of Nosferatu. It's just really interesting. I wonder if some people went into this movie not knowing that it was basically just a retelling of Bram Stoker's Dracula, and they watched this and it was like, wait, this is just the story of Dracula, and it's like, yes, it literally is. With again, obviously some differences, but I mentioned in the reaction that I was surprised when they showed the like dead kids' bodies and everything. Because that's something that a lot of movies shy away from. Like they might mention that kids dies, but a lot of movies will shy away from actually showing that the deaths. And again, we kind of saw like just the basic aftermath of him dropping the corpses and everything. But like one of them, he was still drinking from when she came into the room, and it's like, and they just died too because we heard them screaming just before. So it's like we pretty much saw their deaths. And again, dropping the child bodies, after which you see them and her being carried in caskets, including the little tiny baby caskets, which is like, that's a whole nother level of like upsetting, I guess, is a way to put it. Um, just the concept of there being tiny little baby caskets like that is just not not very nice to think about. Um, but it makes sense, unfortunately. And yeah, it was just a very intense, like shocking scene. And I compared it with like, Terrifier 3 because that showed the aftermath of a child being killed. Technically it showed the actual moment of a child's death as well, though that wasn't as gruesome of a scene. But we saw a kid's body parts hacked into pieces. We just didn't see the hacking. That was off screen. Terrifier 3 was crazy. Um, but yeah, I really liked all the performances. Most of the soundtrack was fine. Like I said, my only issue was that it got a little too like modern dramatic, modern over dramatic with some of the music cues. I love the way it was shot. The old like gritty classic style that it was shot in was like amazing. It was what it should have been. Um, and yeah, I just really think that this was a great version of this story. Not perfect, like I said, it had that little bit of over dramatic tone issue, I would say, but still really damn good. Like actually surprised me by how good I thought it was. Um, I I really like this, and apparently, from what I heard, I heard this on social media. Robert Eggers' next film is going to be a werewolf film, and I actually really tend to like werewolves, so that's pretty exciting. Um, from what I've seen for or what I've heard of the Wolfman movie that just came out recently, hopefully Robert Eggers one is more, you know, an actual werewolf. I haven't seen just like I hadn't seen what Count Orlok looked like prior to this to actually watching this. I have heard that the Wolfman in that movie in that new movie does not look good. I've heard that it really doesn't look good. Um, but I haven't seen it, so I can't say. But yeah, um, I hope that Robert Eggers really does werewolf mythology and everything really damn well. If that's going to be his next film, because that's exciting to me. Honestly, at some points, I kind of like werewolf mythology more than vampires. Kind of goes back and forth with me. Um, so yeah, I'm very excited to see that in the future, I guess. But for now, going back to this, yeah, I think this was really good. I really enjoyed this. It wasn't perfect. It had an issue or two for me, but in the end, like, yeah, I liked it. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this? Oh, before we get to that, before we close this off, I didn't actually, I don't think I actually mentioned my thoughts on Orlok's different look. Because in the original, with Max Shrek playing him, Orlok is kind of, bald, kind of rat looking, which, fits with the entire rat plague and everything. But in this, he kind of has like the more aristocratic hair and the big bushy mustache, which, considering this is based off of Bram Stoker's Dracula, which in turn has inspiration from the real life Vladimir Tepes III of Romania, who had a big bushy mustache. It's like, yeah, no, that actually kind of fits. That actually works. I had no problem with the design at all. Um, I think it worked for the context of everything, for the time period in which this took place, and I think it looked good. I think it was well done. So, yeah, like I said though, tell me your thoughts on this movie, on the cinematography, the writing, the direction, the acting, everything. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.